Diane Francis is the ballsiest journalist in Canada. And with her example, I think we'll sooner or later get around to wishing that we had the ovaries that she did. Diane, where are you? Whether it's the state of the Canadian dollar, whether it's the shenanigans in Ottawa, whether it's immigration, she says it bluntly, she says it clearly.
Thank you.
Diane Francis.
Some cheat sheets. I didn't want to just ramble on without some guideposts. This is what I'm going to talk about. When I was given the invitation, it was quite daunting. I didn't know. I mean, I do a lot of speaking, but I have a script. And I thought, no, let's do something different. And this assignment, if you like, has been preying on my mind ever since the invitation was accepted by myself. I'm going to start with something that popped into my mind immediately. And the assignment was talk about something that's on your mind that's of interest, that can connect things and help people understand stuff. And I started to think a lot about my daughter's T-ball game in 1979. I don't know, those of you who are parents, if you are unfortunate, you have a child who wants to play T-ball. It is the most insufferably boring thing to sit through as a parent. So it was with some trepidation that my husband and I learned that our 7-year-old daughter was in a whole weekend tournament, knockout tournament, 20 teams, and that we would have to be submitted to watching these kids swing as they didn't yet have their hand-eye coordination. Anyway, my daughter's team unfortunately won, which meant that we had to sit through the whole thing. And they had a cute little ceremony. The runners-up were, of course, called up to a dais first, one at a time. There's a nice little red ribbon and a gold medal put around them, one after the other. And I said, wait a minute, they're the runners-up. So I thought the organizers had kind of had a mishap. So I, being pushy, nosy, whatever, I went up and I said, there must be some mistake. This is the runner-up team and you're giving them the gold. She said, the organizer said, oh, no. The winners will get silver. We don't want the runners-up to feel badly about losing. I said, why do we keep score? Led me to think that, and I wrote a magazine piece about it at the time, I said, we have a lot of people that are democratizing success, or trying to. Isn't life a bell-shaped curve? And is failing, losing, or is it having tried and not quite gotten to the top? One of life's greatest paradoxes, in my mind, has always been that you are only as successful as your ability to cope with failure. You only have to be a writer to know that. It's an endless business of rewriting lousy sentences, sleeping on it, rewriting it again. It's a reinvention. It's a work in progress. You can't get on in life unless you can deal with your failures. Could be acne, could be depression, could be a math exam, could be an editor that's a tyrant. So I thought about this a little bit more in context of the T-ball game. Didn't know why the T-ball game was something I wanted to talk about at ideaCity. But it made me go deeper, and I thought, you know what it is? This is about shame. This is a shame-based mentality. This is not about democratizing success. This is about shame and blame. In other words, this organizer, as well-meaning and good-intentioned as she was, it's like a lot of people that run our lives these days, and I'll get onto that in a minute, but she basically was giving a message that it was shameful to be a runner-up, and therefore they should get the gold so they don't feel ashamed. And that the flip side of that was that the winners should be ashamed of winning and get the silver, because winning, when somebody has to lose, is also shameful. And we all know about shame-based societies. The Hindu caste system, the British class system, theocracies that shame people, that beat people into submission, a form of social control that I think is actually very violent, the way it's imposed. It results in political correctness. Political correctness is a form of shaming. You can't smoke what you want, can't say it out loud. If you do, you can't say what you want. In case it insults somebody else, There's certain sacred cows. And I'll give you the process in Canada. I've been through it many times. Taking on the Quebec separatists, saying that they were illegitimate, that they were a fraud, that they were mean-spirited, that they were not constitutionally capable of doing what they always said they wanted to do. Invoked a process of shaming, which I'm in the middle of right now when it comes to writing about refugee or immigration policy, Canada, is that it's a sacred cow. Separatists can be separatists. They can do what they want. And so what you get is your articles in there about people who are overweight, people who are divorcing, people who are going through stuff. It's not investigative. It's an instrument of a shame-based establishment. And I think Canada has this problem. I think a lot of countries do. The United States does, but less so. It actually is in Australia. It's called the tall poppy syndrome. I think it's a British thing, deriving out of the shame-based class system. Tall poppy. Tall poppy syndrome is, in a field of poppies, the one that's tallest has to be cut. The other poppies won't feel so bad, right? Gold medals to the runners-up. Because everybody's ashamed to lose, and then everybody's also made to feel ashamed to win. It's in our government policies, not just Canada, but all over the place. And it's a problem. Shame. We can't let people fail. It's shameful. It's shameful to be a failure. It's shameful to be a tribe that's a hunter and gathering society that has disappeared all over the map and maybe should, that's run by men that treat women badly, that isn't democratic, that doesn't believe in meritocracy but inheritance. But no, we can't let that fail. We have to support it financially as a government. We can't let people fail as fishermen because the fish have disappeared. No, we're going to pay them to fish part-time because we don't want them to fail. Can't fail. Shameful. Shameful to even say they're a failure. Not politically correct. In education, it afflicts. It's insinuated itself in education systems all over the developed world. Passing kids that should fail a grade so they get it over and get it right sets up 6-foot-tall kids in grade 10 who drop out because nobody taught them how to read because they should have failed a grade. Or not even having failing grades. Because there's shame in failing. It's not shame in failing. Failure management is the key to success for people, for companies, for school systems, for families, and for countries, societies. It certainly shows up in the business world, manifests itself in the business world, manifests it in Germany, for instance. If your grandfather borrowed money and went bankrupt, the 2 banks that exist in Germany won't lend you money. In Japan, you commit harakiri if you've made a mishap. Right now, the Japanese are not conquering the world economically, and the whole nation, which is a shame-based culture, is in what is called the big sulk. They're ashamed because they're not doing as well as they can. And by not admitting their failure, haven't come up with policies or attitudes or a debate even as to what to do to manage failure. If you don't admit it, if you're in denial, you can never get past it. The United States is the most lenient culture toward failure. Maybe the secret of their success. I didn't make that up. I've read pieces by very well-known business academics and economic thinkers that have talked along these lines. That essentially, you have bankruptcy laws that allow somebody to fail, get up off their feet and try again. There's a sort of a mythology, if you like, a sort of a urban myth, a sort of a belief in the United States culture that, a failure or two as an entrepreneur is just, you're just earning your badge. Coming back is a big, wonderful, wonderful thing. You just have less concern about coming in second, third, last in the world of business than you do in more shame-based cultures or societies like Canada and Europe, parts of Asia, most of Asia. This translates, of course, into shame-based politics. No, Conrad Black, you cannot become a lord in Britain, to the point where the man has to fight litigation. He's vilified, because he's envied, because he should be made to realize that it's shameful to get an honor in another country. This is not a country at war with Canada. This is the parent country of Canada. But no, no, no. The Prime Minister goes even further and says, no, he was a little miffed because he didn't get tipped off ahead of time about the 2 knighthoods that were recently granted to Canadians. I wonder how he would handle, or would have handled, David Paul of Paul Corporation, a brilliant nuclear physicist from Saskatchewan who got the Congressional Medal of Science a few years ago. Was that something to be ashamed of? Or that's politically correct? But getting a lordship isn't. And I may feel that being a lord is a silly thing, but that's no reason to make a person forfeit their birthright so they can get an honor that doesn't harm anybody, but it plays well to a shame-based electorate. It leads also to a society with a lot of what I call spoiled bratism. You know, when the school lets you answer the question 5 times till you get the right answer, it won't fail you. Or your parents are really nice and indulge you, and everybody's really terrific, and coddles you and protects you. What you end up is demanding all kinds of things from governments, all kinds of things. I think spoiled bratism has a great deal to do with many of the people involved in the backlash against globalization. I don't want to be political here. I'm trying to be psychoanalytic here. This isn't left and right. This is shame-based versus people who think about meritocracies and managing failure to become successful nationally, individually, corporately, educationally. I see a lot in the global backlash people, the protesters in Seattle, never mind the goons and the jerks who hurl things and are violent. But I see a lot of the well-meaning, upper middle class kids who anecdotally I know participate in these things with their placards. They go there to get laid, they go there to drink, they go there to play the drums, they go there to be part of a cause. And I'm saying that there is a lot of problems with the world. But globalization isn't the culprit, and the multinational enterprise is not the culprit. But the multinational enterprise now and free trade are supposed to solve poverty, pollution, abuse of women in the third world, child labor, all of this sort of thing. It's sort of these kids saying, be good parents, you've been bad parents. You're my parents, you fix everything. Everything, you take care. I don't fail, you make sure I don't fail. I don't feel ashamed of failing. I am naturally successful because I was born into your country and your culture. Come on, get on with it, do the same thing for everybody else. There's an element of that. I'm saying that I agree with the push for democracy, the rule of law, birth control, and so on and so forth, and protection of the environment. But in that movement, I see spoiled bratism, a lot of it. And again, it goes back to, we can't have a bell-shaped curve. We have to have equality of outcome, not equality of opportunity. That's what this is all about. And it may have worked if you were born in Forest Hill and went to Upper Canada College. But it doesn't work for the rest of us. And the rest of us have to learn to cope with the fact that nature wasn't fair, DNA isn't fair, and the best we can all hope for is that we find the support systems and our inner strength builds to cope with failure and setback, because that's what life is, a succession of failures and setbacks. So in conclusion, I just want to say that the T-ball game led me to think about shame-based societies, shame-based politics, shame-based business practices. And I worry a lot that in Canada in particular, which is my country, but in a lot of places, we are coming up with a new caste system. Sacred cows, censorship, instead of what I believe is the only shame in life is not trying. Thank you.
I told you she was blunt. As a turns out I uncovered a plot here earlier in the day, but Peter Jennings has been working hard on getting Diane to ABC. So I told him, hands off. And I hope he doesn't succeed.
Thank you.